Hi everyone, this is Amy. I know you all have a lot of questions about when do the rinks reopen. My biggest question has been, how will the rinks reopen? And last night, the US Rink Association, US Figure Skating, and USA Hockey came out with some guidance for us. And if you're new to my channel, I am a skating coach. I'm not a medical professional, but I wanted to go over this guide with you. Please like, share, and subscribe. That'll help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Now, it's important to note that these are not rules, these are not standards, these are simply some recommended practices, guidelines, suggestions. A lot of it does have to do with state and local government and federal government regulations and how that all plays out. Now, we just had an announcement here in New Jersey that schools will remain closed through this academic year, so through June. Also that high school sports for spring will not take place, and that guidance will be forthcoming for summer and fall. Typically, the rinks follow what the schools are doing. Now, whether that is the case now or not remains to be seen. But we do have some guidance as to what's going to happen when the rinks reopen. Before I begin, I'm going to read the disclaimer that's on the guide. The following considerations are provided for informational purposes only and are not intended to and should not be relied upon as specific medical or legal guidance. You are strongly encouraged to consult with qualified medical professionals, public health officials for medical considerations, and to local, federal, and state orders and/or laws for legal considerations. If you use any considerations provided herein, you do so at your own risk. You specifically release from all liability. United States Ice Rink Association, US Figure Skating, USA Hockey, and their directors, officers, employees, volunteers, and agents in connection with your use of the enclosed considerations. In addition to that, I'm going to say you release me. I'm covered probably under those things. I am speaking not on behalf of any of these organizations. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a figure skating coach and what I've gotten out of this guide, as well as I took a course on COVID-19, what you need to know. I've also attended a PSA webcast on COVID-19 where the guest, an expert on the subject. I'm basing my commentary on those things, but anything I'm giving you herein is not necessarily advice. It's just information I've collected. It's not representative of any of the rinks. I am not an employee of the rinks that I work out of. I am an independent contractor. Some things that are not addressed in the guide that was put out last night and is dated May 4th that were discussed in a PSA webinar on March 30th with an epidemiologist. Her name was Tenley Brownwright. The link to that is on my COVID-19 information resource page on my website, and I'll put a link to that in the description down below. But some of the things that I have concerns about that I don't believe are discussed in the Returning to the Rink guide that came out last night are ventilation systems. States like Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Rhode Island do have specific regulations, and maybe the reason why ventilation systems were not addressed in this new guide is because the US Ice Rink Association does make recommendations to rinks on their website about this. One thing that was discussed in the webinar was cold, humidity, and lack of sunlight. Coronaviruses in general, and this is according to Tenley Brownwright, really like the cold. So she goes on to say that coronaviruses survive best in high humidity, relatively cold environments. Now, the ideal ice rink humidity is 55%. Of course, your ice rink may be different than that. My ice rinks might be different than that. But she said on average, the ideal rink humidity is 55%. And to quote her, it survives very well in common ice rink conditions. It's an ideal environment for COVID-19. You have to be extra careful. When you return back to the rink, you should know that. You should also know that rinks are close contact environments. And according to Dr. Brownwright, that means easy transmission. You are in contact with the people around you, yes, but you're also in contact with everyone those people have been around, which is why places like schools and rinks are closed right now, because kids may not show symptoms, but they may be transmitters of the virus. Dr. Brownwright pointed that out in the PSA webcast. Another thing that is not addressed in this guide for US figure skating is off ice. I've been offering off ice to my skaters by Zoom, virtual off ice. Now, why do we do that? Well, it can prevent injuries. Well, it's always important to prevent injuries, but right now it's very important because you can fall in ice skating. That's another question I have. If the droplets fall to the ground when somebody sneezes or exhales or coughs, and you fall on the ice, you may get the droplets on your clothes. Now, if you go to the grocery store, you're not rolling around on the ground, but in ice skating, you do fall and you hit the ice. So that's a question I have that I don't know the answer to. I imagine that if you fall on the ice and there's droplets on the ice that are surviving because it's cold, you can wind up with that on your clothes. That's a guess. That's my speculation. Getting back to off ice, US figure skating does not say this in their guidance, but US hockey does. And the PSA webinar that we had with Dr. Brownwright addresses this, that off ice, virtual off ice, can help prevent injuries by conditioning the body. Well, under the best of circumstances, no one wants to get hurt. And off ice conditioning will work to prevent injuries in our skaters. That, in addition to keeping our skaters healthy, which is of course what we all want to do at all times, it can help reduce the burden on the healthcare system, which right now is very, very important. So before you return to the rink, I suggest, and I'm recommending to all my skaters, that you do off-ice conditioning with your coach. I'm offering this to my skaters, and if your coach is not offering it, but it should be supervised, you should be working with a professional to do this in the safest possible way. I'm also going to caution against, please resist the urge, especially if you've never done it before, roller skating, inline skating. There's a huge risk for injury, especially if you've never done it before. Maybe you don't do that right now. Stick to off-ice training with a professional that can guide you virtually so that your condition and your body is prepared to come back to the ice. Something that is not listed in this guide are health certificates. Now, this is something I've seen some travel companies and the cruise lines do. They're asking you to get the certificate from your doctor, have your doctor sign it to say that you are okay to go. This is something that I do not see recommended in this guide. I also don't see waivers. Now, I know that we all sign waivers, but I don't see any new information on waivers. In states that have reopened, I know that some gyms and fitness centers are requiring specific COVID-19 waivers. It doesn't say anything in this guide, I don't believe, about those at risk staying home, and that is something that maybe is included with the state and local guidelines. But just because rinks are open doesn't mean everybody should go back. Let's dive into this guide, and maybe I'll come back to some of my notes that I made on the webinar. This first section is the US Rink Association, and they say that the purpose of this document is to provide ice rink owners and operators general guidance and recommendations as they develop plans to reopen their business to the public. The recommendations following are not intended or implied to be mandates or industry standards. Many of these recommendations are based upon current guidelines set forth by the CDC and other federal government agencies. The knowledge surrounding COVID-19 is constantly changing, and circumstances are different based on your geographic region. Therefore, the US Ice Rink Association strongly encourages ice rink owners and operators to adhere to their state and local guidelines when determining their own reopening policies and procedures. That's important. We're not in a place, at least where I live in New Jersey, that we can open ice rinks. I don't know when we will be at a place where we can open ice rinks, and different experts have different opinions on this. I don't know. Number one, review your state and local government's current business reopening guidelines. Number two, adhere to local Department of Health guidelines. concerning food service. That is in regard to concessions. Now, something that Dr. Brownwright had said in her PSA webcast was she does not recommend eating at the rink. We should not be lingering around the rink eating. Concession stands may or may not reopen. Number 3, personnel put together a rehiring plan if they've furloughed or laid off employees. Update sick leave PTO policies. Require employees showing symptoms or signs of sickness or who've been in contact with known cases to stay home. Implement employee screening questions and workplace temperature monitoring. Send employees home that are showing symptoms or signs of sickness. Update PPE policies and procedures. Require that employees wear masks and disposable gloves at work. Develop physical distancing policies and procedure for staff interactions. Limit areas that employees can congregate in. Space work shifts and breaks to control the number of employees in a facility. So what that means is break rooms are not likely going to be break rooms. Offices will probably be limited to one person in them at a time. Develop and implement employee retraining programs. It's likely that Rinks will be putting together a program on video or maybe a virtual meeting about what their programs will be. I don't know what any rink is planning to do at this time. I'm just telling you what the US Ice Rink Association is saying in this document. Cleaning. Number 4, identify high traffic areas of the facility that need to be frequently disinfected. Public access areas, employee only access. Identify high touch equipment and fixtures that need to be frequently disinfected. I imagine that's areas like door handles, dasher boards. Identify high touch equipment and fixtures that need to be frequently disinfected. Update current cleaning standard operating procedures. So this is a new acronym that we're going to have going forward. SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. Recommendations: dressing rooms clean and disinfected after each use. Locker rooms. Restrooms clean and disinfected every hour. I welcome that. That is fantastic. Update and implement an employee SOP training plan. Purchase appropriate cleaning equipment and EPA registered disinfectant chemicals. That could be something that is difficult to do right now. Maybe some of the industrial supply companies have them available, but I know that for us, it's difficult to get disinfectants right now. Purchase PPE for employees to use for cleaning tasks. Operations, minimize interactions between employees and customers. Registration and payments for program activities. They're asking to maximize the use of online options. So this is going to depend on the rink. So maybe you pay for your ice session online. And for rinks where you pay the rink for your coaching session, maybe you also do that online. For rinks where you pay your coach directly, I know for me, I am not going to be accepting cash. For 2 reasons. Cash can be very dirty. Second reason is that means I have to take it from somebody and hold on to it. That is not a social distance activity. So I'm going to require that if for rinks where you pay me directly, that you use PayPal or Venmo or Zelle to provide me with payment. Installing plexiglass shields between employees and customers. Now, some rinks already have this at their front desk counters. Other rinks do not. I imagine they're going to either put those in or maybe do the transaction online. What they're saying is lobby front desk, point of sale locations, and skate rental counters. Implement physical distance guidelines within the facility. Clearly identify entry and exit doors with signage, using stanchions to separate. So there might be one door to enter and another door to exit. I know that we've used these doors sort of interchangeably. I can only think of one rink off the top of my head that actually has these always, but it looks like all rinks are going to have them. And rinks that only have one entry and exit may have to come up with a plan to change that. Rinks will have to post physical distancing signage at the entrance Front desk and POS locations, you'll have marks on the floor for standing in line. Some of you have probably seen this at grocery stores or BJ's or Costco. Skate rental counter, the floor will be marked for standing in line. Lobby and concourse, reduce the number of tables and chairs. Space out as needed. Post physical distancing signage. Public restrooms, in order to keep distance, they may have to close off some stalls and sinks. So if there were 2 sinks, there might only be 1 sink. If there were 3 stalls, there might only be 1 or 2. Spectator seating areas will be marked off for seating spaces. Some areas will be closed off, and physical distancing signage will be posted. Participant seating areas, players bench, mark available seating spaces, close off areas as needed, post physical distance signage. Off ice waiting areas, so the doors that we go through to get on the ice, these will be clearly identified waiting areas with signage, and floors will be marked for standing in line. So there's going to be a lot of cues that are marked on ice. Ensure that programming conforms to state and local government physical distancing guidelines. Minimizing touch points throughout the facility. Ensure that no touch fixtures in restrooms are working properly, and consider installing these type of fixtures if they are not already there. So examples are faucets, where you just put your hand under them and they turn on. Same with soap dispensers, where you just put your hand under them and they turn on. Hand dryers, the same thing. Paper towel dispensers, the same. Automatic flushing. Motion controlled light switches. Now, some facilities have these, other facilities, particularly older facilities, do not have these. Propping open doors. So some facilities have entry doors that open and close. Other facilities do not have these. Some facilities, you don't have to open restroom doors. Some facilities have rink doors that are automatic. Others do not. Some facilities may have to prop open doors, so you don't need to use door handles. Consider shutting off water fountains, vending machines, ATM, and video games. Consider eliminating the following: lost and found, holding customer shoes in exchange for rental skates. Minimize employees' shared equipment, and they give examples: computers, POS, touchscreens, phones, two-way radios, copy machines, small office equipment like staplers. Encourage hygiene best practices. Recommend that customers showing any signs of symptoms of sickness or have been in contact with known positive cases stay home. Recommend that customers wear a face mask and gloves at facility. Provide hand sanitizing stations at entrance and throughout the facility. Ensure restrooms have adequate supply of hand soap and disposable towels. Ensure the following public use items are disinfected before and after each use: rental skates, rental helmets, skate aids like walkers. I suggest that if you're a skater and you do not have your own skates, this is a really good time to get your own pair of skates and your own helmet. Signage should be posted throughout the facility. Physical distancing policies, how to protect yourself and others, what to do if you are sick, hand washing how to, cover coughs and sneezes, don't touch your face, eyes, nose, or mouth. They also talk about communication. They encourage rinks to message public about facility cleaning and disinfection plans, what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it. I'm sure as they get more prepared to open, those things will start to come out, and maybe we'll talk about them here. New facility policies such as physical distancing, masks and gloves, staying at home if you're sick, delivery of messages, signage inside facility, website, social media, and email, phone system, voicemail greetings, registration confirmation emails. So I'm going to try to put some of the policies in my lesson confirmation emails and communicating with the public. I'm doing that right now with this video. So we've covered the US Ice Rink Association, and we're now going to cover US figure skating. Now, U.S. figure skating starts with, as the nation begins to reopen businesses after weeks of stay-at-home orders due to COVID-19 pandemic, it's important for your skating programs to have a plan as you welcome back eager customers. Now, I know you guys are eager. I know you are because you've told me you are. First and foremost, facility management must make the health and safety of its staff, participants, and greater community its number one priority. That's very important, and that's why we've been closed, and that's why I'm doing this now, so that you understand. While we want our lives to return to before COVID-19, don't expect things to be business as usual in the immediate future. At this time, it's especially important to have a plan that delivers your program goals while addressing new challenges of our daily lives. Because each rink and associated business is unique, there is no one-size-fits-all guide. However, U.S. Figure Skating offers the following recommendations based on the CDC, social distancing, and sanitation practices to help slow the spread of the virus and ensure participants feel safe and comfortable at your rink. So, guidelines to returning to on-ice activities. Assess your situation. Skating clubs and ice rinks across the nation are unique entities that operate under various local contexts. Before we welcome back skaters, review your local government and health agencies' COVID-19 response and develop and implement appropriate policies and procedures for your situation. It is the responsibility of each skating director, coach, facility staff member to enforce policies and procedures intended to keep all participants safe. By following these guidelines, as well as those of local governments and health agencies, skaters and their families will be able to make more informed decisions as to when they can return to the ice. So, organize. Limit the number of skaters allowed on the ice at a single time. Implement ways to minimize contact between participants and staff. Purchase adequate disinfectant cleaning materials. Shorten programs and stagger ice times to create buffer between sessions. Just reading between the lines here based on what has been said, I imagine that the days of a 60-minute freestyle session may not be what we experience. It might be more likely that because we're limiting the number of skaters allowed on the ice, sessions might be limited to 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time, in order to that everybody can use the ice safely with limiting the number of people on the ice. Establishing amount of time skaters have to pack up and exit the facility, and they provide an example here of 15 minutes. It might be that you get in, you get prepared to skate, you get on the ice, and you get out. I'm actually thinking about the possibility of putting my skates on outside. They are recommending online bookings and payment. So you might book your ice session online and pay for it online. How check-in would work, I don't know yet. It's also recommended that only one parent or guardian accompany younger children if needed. Now, some of you might have experienced what one of our rinks here did the final week we were open, was they did not allow parents in the rinks at all. It was only skaters and coaches. Parents were only allowed to come in to pay for the session and the lesson. They were having to wait outside. That may be what happens moving forward. They are recommending that formal training for all staff, coaches, instructors, and volunteers on new procedures and protocols with a checklist posted for us to follow. Monitoring staff health. Employers might ask, are you experiencing any symptoms of COVID-19? Have you been exposed to anyone with symptoms of COVID-19 in the past 14 days? Have you taken your temperature? And if so, what is it? Now, I've been doing that daily. And I've also been taking my blood oxygen daily. Probably not everybody's doing that, but we're going to have to. Do not permit any staff to work with any symptoms or contact with COVID-19 in the past 14 days. Keeping meticulous logs of users by date and time in case of the need for contact tracing. Plan for increased levels of staff and volunteer absences. This may mean that rinks either have a shortage of staff that is permitted to work because of exposure, but it also could mean that just rinks may open and then rinks may have to close again. We'll have to see what happens. Communication. Now, seeing as in my previous life, I was marketing and communication expert for a nonprofit, I'm going to wholeheartedly agree with this, and this is what I'm doing with you now, is communicating early and often. Emailing skaters and their families with new policies and procedures, making expectations clear. That's, of course, what I'm doing now. Oh, look, consider making a video to review procedures and policies. That's what we're doing right here. Coaches should provide preferred method of communicating with parents. So for me, I prefer communicating with parents via email and text or text message. And email is probably a little bit better because I don't feel as pressured to get back to you right away, especially inside a facility. I don't want to be using my phone, touching my phone. I would appreciate if parents would email me. That way when I get home and have changed my clothes, then I can take the time to email you. So that's going to be my suggestion to parents. Appointing a COVID-19 point person to communicate with rink management and monitor local, state, and national developments. I'm just going to put that out there that any rinks that need that, I'd be happy to do. Social distancing, enforcing social distancing of 6 feet apart. So that's difficult, obviously, because most people have difficulty judging what 6 feet is. So especially children. So parents, I'm going to encourage you to remind your kids, maybe show them examples, but rinks are also going to have to be putting lines on the floor and markers to designate that. And they're also advising on the use of simple face coverings to slow the spread of the virus, post signage reinforcing social distancing and illness prevention measures. The CDC has free posters and handouts available on their website, so they're recommending that we use those. I don't know that I want to hand things out, but I may be emailing these things to some of my skaters, and I'm sure the rinks will as well, using tape markers for readiness areas 6 feet apart. They're also advising to leave all personal equipment in skating bag or a car. So this comes back to my thinking that I may actually put my skates on outside. I may take them out of my bag outside, put them on outside, bring anything I need in a smaller bag with me. I'm thinking cleaning equipment, sanitizing equipment in a smaller bag rather than my large skating bag that I bring with me, or I had previously brought with me. We're gonna have to change some things. They are recommending dividing coaches and skaters into training groups if ice time can accommodate. Number and assign each coach a designated area along the boards where they must stand to teach private lessons. This is a really good idea, and this is actually something I was going to think to discuss with the rinks myself, but I'm glad that US Figure Skating has put this out here. Coaches must remain in that area and may not skate alongside any student. Limit coach-skater contact. Coaches should not help students up unless a student is unable to get up. This is really important for parents to understand. It's not that we don't want to help. And I had this problem leading into this, so when we were still teaching at the end of February and the beginning of March, I had a lot of trouble, particularly with the little ones, about this. Coaches should use verbal cues when instructing students rather than physical contact. All warm-ups should be done outside the building, weather permitting. All my skaters have, at the very least, even if you're a basic skills skater, you have the National Dynamic warm-up that I've given to you, and I've asked you to do it before you get on the ice. I still want you to do that, but I need you to do it outside before you come inside. Locker rooms should be closed. Skaters and coaches should come prepared to take the ice. This again goes back to what I was saying before. I'm thinking I may have to put my skates on outside, maybe using my car. If you live close to the rink, maybe they do their warm-up at home, put their skates on at home, get in the car and come right onto the ice. Skaters should enter and exit the ice at staggered times and use separate entrances. So what they don't want here is they don't want, maybe the number is 5. Maybe 5 skaters are allowed to get on the ice at any given time, or maybe the number is 10 skaters are allowed to be on the, I don't know. But maybe your ice time is in slots. So instead of 9 a.m., it's one goes on at 9 a.m., one goes on at 9:05, another skater goes on at 9:10, another skater goes on at 9:15, and so on and so forth. So rather than having these times be the sessions from 9 to 10, it might be that there's 3 hours allowed for freestyle, for example, and every skater has a 15 or 20-minute slot, and only one skater gets on the ice at a time. That could be something we see. Lesson plans should ensure skaters are 6 feet from each other. Now, this could be difficult. This is not talking about Learn to Skate USA group lessons, but this could be difficult. And this means that we can't have as many people on the ice. Obviously, utilizing markers and new activities to ensure spacing is maintained. Definitely provide 6-foot markers and spectator areas. So once again, spectators should be limited, and maybe only one parent can come with a very young skater. Maybe an older skater in their teens or preteens doesn't need a parent there, and I would suggest that parents that don't need to be there, if your skater is with a coach, for example, on a freestyle session or a public session, maybe you wait in the car so that you're not adding to the number of people in the rink. And some rinks may require that. Do not allow any gatherings in the lobby or bathrooms. Now, I know we all like to chit chat and we're all gonna miss seeing each other. I miss seeing my skaters, I miss seeing the other coaches, I miss seeing the people who work at the rink, but we're not allowed to gather and talk in the lobby. Providing a clean environment is the next category. Now, a lot of this was discussed in the first thing that I talked about with the US Ice Rink Association's recommendations. So US Figure Skating sums it up fairly quickly. Follow all Center for Disease Control and Prevention recommendations for sanitation. Schedule in between ice session cleanings, wiping down dasher boards, door handles, and other frequently touched surfaces. Now, skaters and parents may remember that I was doing this myself. I don't know if the rinks were doing that specifically, but anytime I entered the ice, I did it myself by carrying Clorox wipes. Require skaters or a parent, if a younger child, to wipe down their readiness area before and after use. So if you are putting your skates on in a chair or on a bench, you need to wipe it off, and then after you use it, you need to wipe it off again. Same is true if you're using dasher boards. Wipe it off before you put anything on it. And if you put your water bottle or kiss and cry bag, they are saying to limit the personal items on dasher boards off a bench. Do not share water bottles, tissue boxes, etc. Limiting personal items on dasher boards. So if you have a kiss and cry bag, it might be that the rink says you can't bring it. Or it could be that a rink says, no, we do want you to bring it, but keep all your personal belongings like your tissues and everything, your water bottle, your phone, your CD, whatever you have. Do bring it, keep your items in it, because we don't want you spreading it out on the dasher boards. They're asking rinks to ensure that there are adequate trash cans for tissues so that you can throw them away and dispose of them properly. So we may have trash cans in the player boxes. Equipment, sanitizing all rental equipment between usage. Now again, I'm going to go out and limb and say if you are a skater, you should have your own equipment. They're asking that rinks do not take shoes as collateral to be held for rental equipment. Helmet rental should be ceased until proper sanitation can be ensured. Get your own multi-sport helmet. If you're a hockey player, you probably already have a helmet. And using sanitizing wipes before and after using any pole or harnesses. So that's for anybody that's doing jump training. We might see that those things are we're just not allowed to use them. Some rinks have them. Some coaches bring their own. If coaches bring their own, they're going to have to sanitize them between each use. If a rink has them, maybe the rink will just say, we're not going to let you use them right now. Plan ahead, developing flexible refund policies should stay-at-home orders be restored. So we may see rinks open and rinks close again, rinks open and rinks close again. This might be an ongoing thing that continues to happen over the course of the next, some experts say, 18 or more months. Closures may continue to cycle. They're saying create an emergency plan with rink management for a possible outbreak. So Learn to Skate USA, which is technically part of US figure skating, but also separate from US figure skating. So because beginners, and I'm reading this, I'm not making this up, because beginner skaters generally need more person-to-person contact with instructors from helping them get up and retying their laces. For this reason, those involved in Learn to Skate USA programs will need to be extra vigilant in following facility and local authority guidelines. Before returning to the ice, write down your plan and clearly communicate it. Create and print a checklist of duties to relate it to COVID-19 for staff to easily reference. And here are some guidelines that they're giving. It may be Learn to Skate USA and other group skating programs may not begin when the rinks reopen. I think that's very likely. But what they're asking to do is to manage participants by limiting group size to align with physical distancing restrictions put into place. This may affect how many people are allowed in the facility or on the ice at one time. Have a traffic flow plan that directs participants through a facility while limiting possibilities to congregate. Require participants to come dressed and prepared to enter the ice after putting on skates. Strongly consider not offering any beginner classes such as Snowplow Sam 1, Basic Skills 1, Adult 1. Until physical distancing restrictions have been ceased. Rules of the trade: strive to have a single employee handle and sanitize all rental equipment. They're also saying that we should dispose of all plush and stuffed animal toys. Some rinks do not use these at all. Other rinks do. The rinks who do, they are recommending that you dispose of all of these. And if you use toys, to only use hard plastic toys that will be sanitized. Not that can be sanitized, but that will be sanitized. But they're saying to consider using more on-ice drawings, toys, and games that do not require direct contact. So how we use all those markers. Or if you watched my video, What's in My Skating Bag, you will see I have a lot of markers, a lot of colored markers. And I'll put a link to that video in the description down below. Pre-planning, time block, and map out hypothetical situations to ensure you've adequately planned procedures related to arrival, pre-lesson preparations, on-ice lesson, post-lesson wrap-up, and departure. Avoiding overlaps in audience. So if we have a half an hour group lesson, they're not going to be leaving the ice when another group is taking the ice. Chances are there's going to have to be a time frame built in there for that change. I don't know what it is. That remains to be seen. They need to allow time to sanitize lobby areas, bathrooms, dasher boards, and rental equipment between sessions. Utilize online payment, registration systems, take payments over the phone if necessary. We've talked about that previously. For private lessons, expand registration process to include rental skate information. If skaters need rental skates, maybe have them set aside and ready upon arrival. If sessions are generally very crowded, consider removing free skate and practice time at the end of classes or adjusting session times to ensure that students and instructors can maintain a 6-foot distance at all times. Prepare for arrival, stagger arrival times, or use separate entrances for arrival and exit. Use pop-up secondary lobby areas if possible to avoid congestion. So we might see check-in take place outside. I don't know. I think, again, a lot of this stuff will change over time. A lot of the stuff we've covered, refund policies, emergency plans. Yeah. Hey, USA Hockey. Most of USA Hockey is very specific to hockey, but one thing I want to point out that they do mention specifically is that before we fully return to the rinks, we encourage you to use this time as an opportunity to stay connected with players by engaging with kids and families virtually. So I think that's very good that USA Hockey has pointed that out, and the rest of the hockey information is along the same lines as the other information we've already covered. So if you want to see that, there is a link to this document in the description down below, and I encourage you to read that. Okay, everyone, so that's it. I encourage you to read this guide. I also encourage you, if you haven't already, view the PSA webcast that I've referenced a few times. Do that. I have all these resources and more on my COVID-19 resource page on my website. Remember, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, like, share them, comment. Remember, wash your hands, don't touch your face, stay 6 feet apart from everyone, and I hope that I get to see you at the rinks soon. Until that time, please stay well, be well.